Synergetic Century, May 12, 2017. Omniscient Universe Church, 15. A Bountiful Conception. Despite enormous volumes of communicated information and the future-minded technology anticipated accommodating just about every type of interpersonal communication, as increasing numbers of Earth's human populations will have access to the internet, what any education systems in a thriving democracy need are rudimentary and a developing awareness of a dimensionality as an ordinary referential conceptuality of the universe, which is a measure of everything we experience. This is, as intellect is no longer a targeted market of the billionaires whose opportunistic motivations position their technologically educated ambition at an advantage for profiting at the under and uneducated's expense. Everyone is driven by an innate propensity to communicate, to be informed, and until otherwise inclined, to keep in touch. But surely, as a highly intelligent species, humans can look to the generalized topological definability, the dimensional reference frame, the fourth, fifth, sixth power ring, correlatively to the pre-time size frequency metaphysical generalized conceptioning fields of thought. Till then, regardless of our love of democracy, with all its excruciatingly imbalanced growing pains, most of us remain clueless about what identifies the nuclear propagation rates and a conceptuality of the closest approach to eternity and universe's omniscient mind. So it remains to be seen, to become known. Synergetics 966.13. Observing on Hulu.com the Charlie Rose Season 25, Episode 159 interview of Mike Schroepfer, Chief Technology Officer at Facebook, obviously it is, as though the ultimate and increasing billions dollars from the universal communications are to think for everyone, to anticipate their patterns of behavior, what the computer technology has already learned about subscribers in order to facilitate and accommodate whatever it might be. What those technological experts seem to want to control by their default mindsets is what must compel the human being to discover on its own by trial and error information gathering for ourselves as an evolution's survival proclivity. This includes awareness of the lag rates, not only between apprehension and comprehension, but also related to the most economical way of behaving relative to unity and self in universe. Such anticipatory thought language involves brain's mind, its metaphysical evolutions, self-remodifying, and physical evolution, self-retransforming. That these inherent propensities must be controlled for a billionaire segment of society whose advantage relies on everyone's need to communicate in order for the internet system to succeed in the money-making pursuits does not, in practice and over time, advance our highly intelligent species. The conceptuality about all that identifies the nuclear propagation rates and how this occurs pulsatingly in the metaphysical universe ought to be common knowledge. We can learn of it from Synergetics Online, which refers a thought's metaphysical generalized conceptioning to the evolvement frame, the vector equilibrium, field of energy, Synergetics 205.01. It develops from a cluster of spheres. Why must these conceptualities that explain the generalized physical case, which is entropic, and the generalized content of syntropic information first be exploited by a controlling information network that requires some form of human energy? Synergetics 200.06. Once intellect gets the gist of it, that syntropy evolves to terminate the entropic disorder, as well as that an absolute accommodation network of energy articulation has been discovered, the AAANOEA Synergetics 201.10, then, with love of democracy as an ideal form of government, along with its educational systems, we can acknowledge a single conceptual system that Bucky Fuller also discovered. Synergetics 251.50. It provides a common language and accounting for both the physical and the metaphysical. After Bucky integrated geometry and philosophy. As well, and with regard to early education, we can acknowledge the vector equilibrium, which is the equanimity model that shares the same design in both the metaphysical and physical universe. Clearly, the exchange agent is also the exchange model that is so universal it does not seem to be intended as an internet monopolizing facilitation of the shared but controlled information in images, unseen pixels, and text. It may turn out to be a great mistake to constrain humans by the predominantly physical image at the expense of all that remains to become relevant to each other in principle. Our humanity does not really need someone's technological astuteness to always be one step ahead of us at every anticipatory turn of events in the universal communications process. We do not require more self-deception and self-delusion. Instead, and also because a threat of extreme ignorance is always a bit too close for comfort. Then the centers of energy rebirth, which are accommodated by the isotopic vector matrix 960.05 through 07, ultimately would be the most important multi-optional conceptuality for accommodating all the angularly referenced multi-dimensional relationships. Synergetics 540.41. Imaginably every new regime on the world stage, the limited terms in governmental office, the love of a true democracy in the synergetic century would anticipatorily know so much more than those whose lifetime experiences precede it. Ideally, this never omits by a default setting an awareness of the vector equilibrium, primarily because it represents a conceptuality of the equilibrious and the disequilibrious, a way of understanding how a four-dimensional universe slips by into three-dimensional aspects, which is a dynamic process, whereas any observation of a two-dimensional articulation can fixate the observer's information gathering, sharing, local problem-solving concern in what appears to be of a special, albeit momentary interest that does not in itself improve the potentiality of realizing the freedoms that are inherent in the whole, WHOLE, dynamic relationship between the observer and the observed, self and otherness, the environment and systems. While Indonesians in particular are presently immersed in the imprisoning Islamic Sharia law system that the people agreed to way before realizing this enslavement is controlled by the slave mentality conditioning, people everywhere on earth are subject to many self-deluding systems. The hardship deprives them of basic needs, a roof over their head, potable drinking water, a reliable resource, nutritious food to sustain them for a whole lifetime. See Frontline, May 9th, 2017, Poverty, Politics, and Profits on PBS. So we truly must wonder how the generalized conceptioning of the resource technology does not provide what seems to be controlled for exploitative purposes. Is it not just another underpinning case that supposedly substantiates the freedoms in a universal communication system despite the periodically collapsing governments who coexist in this co-occurring evolution scenario. This is alongside the gradually increasing juxtaposed ambitions by politics and religion advantaged, some of which are enhanced by the latest technology, and some of which derive from the historically established roots of religion to all extremes of its relative insanity. Sure, we can slough it off as a temporary inconvenience, a disrupting interference from some upstart or even a multiplicity of start-up endeavors to their meteoric rise on the income-producing ladder of success all the way to the highest recognized pinnacle. In essence, though, it continues to omit what seems to have been in plain sight all along, at least at the university level, wherein many grasped the significance of a coordinate system relative to an absolute accommodation network of energy articulation, the AAANOEA, correlating to the potentiality of the computer's internet technology from the mid-20th century. It represents an inroad to the once untold fortunes into billions of dollars, and much more freedom to conceptually explore the world than all that has been settled upon the impoverished millions and billions of humans on Earth. Those internet experts are familiar with the icosahedron and ever-improvable algorithms as disproportional populations are struggling to survive in refugee camps, homeless shelters, homelessness, hopelessness, drug addiction, indebted by differential degree throughout a whole lifetime to the prevailing education and governmental systems in the world, all of which must reference a hierarchy of order. It is not a sublime order, however, and yet a mathematically exquisite sublime order eventually could be recognized. That is the point here. It is the obvious and the unobvious, but is ever in plain sight once we know of it. The isotopic vectorially triangulated omnidirectional matrix, a cosmic hierarchy. The cosmic hierarchy initiates rational and uniformly modulated angle and frequency. Synergetics 208. People everywhere accredit the politicians' wheeling and dealing, the religion's high priest's supposed closest connection to God, the power of justice to imprison or grant freedom, the military to defend our chosen way of life, the lifestyles to which we have grown comfortably accustomed, adapting thus, cherishing it. Whatever the extremes of its self-serving might be, are anywhere in the complicated world's communication systems. But actually, it is angle and frequency modulation that exclusively define all experiences. Such events do not belong to the controllers of the World Wide Web technologies. The events altogether constitute universe. An event is conceptual universe. Humans experience events and we experience no events, all of which occur respecting the gravitational coherence and the radial depth equating with frequency. Since juxtaposed compression and tension provide the basis of awareness of life itself, which is a metaphysically interpreted physical dimension, then the conceptuality of compression is never irrelevant. What I seem to be getting at here is a validation for imagination's ability to formulate conceptually as an evolution propensity that cannot be factored out by the leaders we trust who must choose one system over another regarding the communications process. If they are politically motivated, as one claim to fame and fortune, or if they are synergetically informed, as the most accurately derived concepts, then adjusting the a priori thought to a total reality of universal principles advantage the constituents who likewise are endowed with a mind that can discern the unknown relationships between the separate events. Brain's limited computer capability is empowered by its mind in any case and in any event. Human mind discovers and produces order. It is the only access we have to eternity. Recognition lag rates by our informed awareness that identifies the weightless metaphysical life is a mind function. Our individual mind's generalization capability returns time and time again to eternity. This must be why a recognition of zero pulsation and the vector equilibrium, which is the closest approach we will ever know to eternity and the omniscient mind, also correlate to the nuclear-centered intertransformable systems of the isotropic vector matrix. Imaginably, there are enough tetravolumes and quanta modules to advantage any progressively oriented democracy's education system compared to the haphazard, ad hoc, term-limited, politically improvised interactions which restart cycles, the mind's awareness of the vector equilibrium and the tetrahedral models during one's individual metaphysical generalized conceptioning virtually permits everyone to go beyond being on the same page. It provides an absolute accommodation network of energy articulation. It is a mindfully adherent reality in generalized principle. The generalized principles that are governing the eternally regenerative universe. To ignore this bountiful conceptioning is a discredit to the potentiality of our highly intelligent species. Thank you.